Last week, I asked my followers to ask me any question and I'd pick one to reply in a video. So this was one I got. As a black woman in the UK, are there any times where you feel unsafe around white people? I received a few questions, but I thought that this one would be an interesting one to unpack. Are there instances where I feel unsafe around white people as a black woman? Now, when I first read this question, I do have to admit, I couldn't help but laugh. Not because it's a silly question, but because the obvious answer would be, in my opinion anyway, well, why would I? But then I paused and I remembered the times that we live in and the numerous instances where people who look like me, and even people who don't, have claimed that black people do feel unsafe around white people at times. And not only that, but they have reasons to. It's justified. And we have seen that this kind of rhetoric has been used time and time again to advocate for separate spaces in academic institutions, in schools, in workplaces, even places of leisure, you know, the theatre and so on.
One of the things that an apologetic black space does is allows individuals to have a space where they can be themselves without the pressures, the sociological pressures that exist. You know, as a minority individual, one of the things is that you're dealing with stereotypes. You're dealing with misinformation about who you are and how you act and the things that you do. And so having a space like HBCUs provide for African American and black students is that it provides a space for the students to just be themselves. They could be a student and not necessarily a black student, even though they are a black student, but a black student without the sociological pressure of what that means in terms of whiteness or the larger dominant society.
Okay, let's talk about this very briefly. Is it really accurate that just because a space is full of people who look like you, that automatically means that it's a space that you can be yourself? I can tell you now from my own experience and from speaking to so many black people, it is not. It's not automatic. For example, he mentioned, HBCs. Have you seen or have you heard how many black people have actually come out and said, actually, these are the spaces that I felt the most unsafe. These are the spaces that I felt the most judged, that I felt that I couldn't actually be my true, authentic self. For example, I'm not sure if you guys saw that viral trend recently on TikTok, where the question was something like, what's something that you used to be afraid to say, but you're no longer scared to say today, right? And I saw a comment from a black young man, and he was saying, actually, these black spaces are probably the most toxic for him.
Something I'm afraid to admit as a black person is that I didn't go to an HBCU because I didn't want to get made fun of again. Like, I get it. Like, a lot of the things people are saying are rooted in anti-blackness. You're saying that ghetto-ness is a unique black trait, and like, I get that part. That part makes sense. But I'm just curious, like, how in the hell are people that blurs, folks like me, supposed to talk about our experiences without it being anti-black? Because I feel like the only time we're allowed to talk about this is in the letter that we write before we jump off of a bridge. Like, it hurts and it continues, and I feel like no one ever discusses it, no one ever talks about it, because the minute that you do, it becomes more focused on how you're saying what you're saying instead of the things that you're actually saying. And this isn't just middle school trauma bullshit. Y'all do this shit at family reunions. Y'all do this shit currently. It happens right now, today. Oh, you too old to be playing video games. I wish it just stopped there, but it's the implications that you make because we play video games. It's the implications that you make because we do cosplay and we like anime. It's the implications. It's the things that you say. And y'all can be harsh. Like, you have no idea how harsh you can be. And then when you try to call it out, you're being too sensitive. You acting white. You talking white. You think you better than us. And that's not what's going on at all. So yes, this trend sucks. It does suck. Some people have taken it and just used it to express all the stuff that they've never been able to express, and it's wrapped in this anti-blackness because that's what happens when you get pushed out of your community. But somebody today, explain to me how you can talk about the experiences that you have had without it being anti-black. Give me the exact words to say.
So I don't buy that just because you are in a space with people that look like you, that automatically means that you are free. You can let your guard down. And you can ask this from any other so-called community. There's some people that feel that within their own cultural group, if they're a little bit different, then that's when all the judgments start. So I'm not saying that black spaces for black people are toxic, but I'm saying that let's not be a little bit naive to think that just because people in the same space look like you, that means that it's a space where you can truly be free. And I'm not even talking about having different hobbies, even different ideas. So you want to tell me that just because I'm black, if I go into a black space, if people hear my thoughts, my views, my so-called conservative leaning ideas, that I will be accepted in that space? Not necessarily. You know, I have black friends, my family is black, so I know this from first-hand experience. And so many people have been in my shoes as well. First of all, let's address this concept of safety and feeling unsafe. The words we use to describe situations and ourselves carry significant weight. But as many of you are aware, certain terms have become so overused and misapplied that their meanings have become so diluted. Take, for instance, the word racism and racist. It's crazy how frequently these labels are thrown around these days, often in contexts where they don't simply apply. We've reached a point where these words have been so misused, so abused, that to be honest, people don't care anymore. People just tune out when they hear these words. Words that used to have a lot of gravity mean literally nothing because they mean everything. It's applied to everything. And I wrote about this recently on Substack, how people are becoming numb to racism. So I'll link that in the description below. You know, your D'Angelos and your anti-racists, what do they say? It's not about whether racism occurred, it's about how it occurred. But the problem is, when everything is labeled as racist, then it loses its potency, its power. It loses the ability to accurately describe the situations it applies to. So back to this word safety and this obsession with people claiming that they're always feeling unsafe. So according to the dictionary, being unsafe literally means in danger of being harmed. I would say that's a pretty serious condition, right? But what happens? This word gets carelessly tossed around these days, becoming another trendy buzzword. More and more people are cheapening this term by claiming they feel unsafe in situations where they might just be feeling uncomfortable. People say they've been harmed when all that happened is that maybe they were offended, maybe something triggered them. Feeling uncomfortable, feeling unsafe is not the same thing, and we have to understand this. Both the words unsafe and harm, just like the word racism, have become some kind of catch-all descriptors for anything that makes one person feel a bit slighted. But labeling something as unsafe when it objectively isn't is just another form of self-victimization. You know, there's something I once read in the Bible, and if you're familiar with the Bible, you probably know it too. And it's somewhere in Proverbs that says, "The wicked flee when no one is pursuing." That's what I'm basically seeing nowadays. People are moving in paranoid ways, acting defensively, literally when there's no immediate threat. And you know, I was thinking about it. I guess it's that modern human condition, right? Our prehistoric ancestors were there, facing actual, imminent, tangible dangers, predators, famine, harsh environmental conditions daily. Like daily. There was no need to imagine, it was there. Their survival instincts were finely tuned to recognize and respond to these actual concrete dangers, physical threats. But today, many contemporary societies have mitigated those primal life or death situations through the comforts of civilization. But our brains, they still seem to crave this urgency, this hypervigilance that once kept our species alive. And that's why, especially in the Western world, ironically in more advanced and more so-called civilized societies, we tend to subconsciously manufacture these abstract theoretical threats. We have created new phantoms to fight in the absence of the actual saber-toothed tigers and all the other creatures and all the other things that we had to combat on a daily basis. So, back to whether I feel unsafe around white people. No, I don't. Now, there have been times that I have felt out of place, or maybe the odd one out. Not because of something sinister on the part of others, but because I was objectively different than everyone else in that room or in that space. Is a natural human feeling and reaction. So I remember one time, for example, me and my husband went to a restaurant in a semi-rural area, and, you know, we were the only black people there and everyone else was literally white. So we felt a little bit, there was that feeling of, we're different. And then you stand out. So automatically as humans, we say we like to stand out and be individuals, but really it's an uncomfortable thing for us. It is an uncomfortable thing, and that's why not everyone is brave or courageous to stand out or do something out of the ordinary, right? But that same feeling I had in that white restaurant is the same feeling that I might have if I go to a space that's just full of Asian people, or that's just full of even Black people. Funnily enough, I remember going into another restaurant at a different time, and I'm Black, but we went into an Eritrean restaurant, you know, and everyone was similar. Everyone had similar skin tones, which is like a lighter hue to those that are from West Africa, like myself. They were all speaking the same language, and there I felt out of place, you know, in the midst of my so-called people. So it's normal, it's natural. So it's not about feeling unsafe. Discomfort is normal, it's fine. But then escalating it into feelings of being unsafe, I think that's a little bit extra. The point is, feeling momentarily out of place or different because of surface level human differences, right, is a natural human reaction. It doesn't necessarily or inherently mean that you are threatened or you are unsafe, unless, of course, there are blatantly hostile behaviors coming from the people who are around you. If you're in a space and you're the only gay person, the only trans person, the only neurodivergent person, only woman, only man, that does not mean that you are unsafe. That does not equate to a lack of safety. Again, unless someone is acting aggressively or hostile, right? And to be honest, contrary to what professional victims actually believe, so 99.9% of the time, no one is actually thinking about you, but you. It's all in the head. Now, some people can say, well, you should feel unsafe around white people. What about the Karens? What about the headlines? What about the white women's tears? What about the police brutality and so on? White people ain't no group to be trifled with.
Because crazy white people are not to be trifled with.
Okay, so let me entertain that line of thinking for a second. So you want to tell me that I should take a few incidents, isolated incidents, and then use it as the basis to judge an entire group of people? Isn't that a mentality that we're fighting to leave behind, even though it's literally not working with this tribalistic culture that we live in nowadays? But that is what we should be moving away from. Unless by that same logic, should we then perceive all Black people as the same, as inherently unsafe because of a few viral videos? And we've seen those videos. Should we then subscribe to those same stereotypes because of a few incidents? No. And anyone who does that is racist. You can't judge a whole group of people based on the actions and behaviors of some. So to summarize, I do not feel unsafe around white people just because of their skin color, just like I don't feel unsafe around Black people or Asians or anyone else. I don't subconsciously brace for imminent danger when I'm around white people, any more than I would when I'm with Black people, Asian people, Latinos, whoever. Your actions, your behaviors, your mannerisms, your movements, that's what determines whether you are unsafe or not your ethnicity or your race alone. Let me know your thoughts below. Subscribe, connect with me on social media. I write on Substack. All the links are going to be below. Let's continue having these conversations. Adios.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy our videos, why not leave a like and hit the subscribe and notification bell so you make sure that you do not miss an episode.